because, record what I'm saying, because I'm gonna give a lot of information in a short amount of time. And this is information that I'm very familiar with, and this is probably a lot of information that you are not familiar with. So, if you're spending money to get all this information, you might as well record it, so you can look back on it and review it, and have something. Because there's no way that everybody can remember everything I'm gonna say in a short amount of time I'm gonna say it. First of all, we're dealing with people who are losing their properties. And people who are losing their properties haven't paid their bills, and they haven't paid their mortgage. And sometimes they bought the property when the property values were high, and the property value dropped, and now the property is upside down. So the first thing a person has to look for, whether it's a good property or bad property, is, as my colleague said before, there's something called the final judgment. It's the final judgment amount. Let's say the final judgment amount is $250,000. You have to compare the final judgment amount to the value of the property. There's three sources that I go to when I look up property values.
Here.
I go to Trulia, Trulia. I go to Zillow, Zillow. And I also go to the county website that shows comparable sales within a quarter mile, within a half a mile, I think up to 2 miles. And you can look at the county sales that have sold, and you can look at what the value that Zillow and Trulia gives. And none of these are particularly accurate, but they're all within range. There are so many factors in a house that determine its value. For example, there could be a house in Atlanta that sold for $130,000, and you have an identical house, but the house has not been fixed up in a while, and it's worth $55,000, not $130,000. You have to put $30,000 into it to get it up to $130,000. So just because a person can't be too optimistic with hope that, oh, a property next to this sold for 150, my property's worth 150. It might not be worth 150. It might have problems. It might be old. It might not be renovated. Maybe the people who sold the property for 150 next door, maybe they put in $60,000, $70,000 renovating it, and it's brand new. It has hardwood floors. It has a new roof. It has new plumbing. It has new electric. It could have granite and so on. So in the kitchen. So there's many factors that determine a property value, but the first filter that you need to use when looking at a property value is to look at what the final judgment is in the county website, and then compare that to the market value that is provided by Trulia, Zillow, or the county website, which are all very good sources. So if something is owed $250,000 on it, and you see that the property is worth $150,000, you skip it. It's not. You owe $100,000. It's owed $100,000 more than it's worth. It's not even worth looking at, because the way it works with foreclosures is the bank sends in a mule, so to speak, who goes into the bidding, and they bid up to the value of the loan, and then they take the property back, unless the bank agrees to a short sale before the property goes to auction. Then it's possible to get the property for less than the loan value in a short sale only. But generally, the properties that we're looking at are properties that are in foreclosure. So if something is owed $250,000 in final judgment, and the property is a value based on these tools that we use to give a market range of $150,000, it's not worth looking at. It's not worth looking at all. And so that will take out, I would say, 75% of the properties. Most of the properties that have been in foreclosure have been in foreclosure for years. And the amount of money that's owed, the amount of money that's loaned is usually 80 to 90% of value. And then when the property is not paid for years, the amount of money that's owed usually becomes 50% more than the value of the property. So most of these properties that are in these foreclosure websites are upside down, and they're not worth looking at. So what we're looking for are the good properties. So now I'm gonna tell you a good property we found. Paul and I were researching a certain neighborhood, and this was in Miami Gardens, and there was a house that it owed a $70,000 mortgage. And I looked up on Trulia, I looked up on Zillow, and everywhere else that this house was worth $125,000 to $135,000. So that sends off a good red flag. This property has equity in it. And when I found this particular property, it was going to foreclosure the next day. So I drove over to the property, and I looked up the name of the property. So anyway, in regard to the research skills that you're going to gather from this discussion, the first research are those 3 sites that I mentioned. The next research is, it's called the Miami-Dade landing page. Miami-Dade landing page property search. You Google that, and then Miami-Dade landing page property search. If you Google that, you'll get to the county website to look up any property address. Now in Broward County, you just simply look up Broward County property search. Now make sure that when you look at the website, it says .gov after it and doesn't say .com after it, because if it says .com, that means it's a private company that's trying to draw you in on a government search, and they're going to want to try to take money for services for something that you're trying to do for yourself. So you either have the Miami-Dade landing page property search, or you have the Broward County property search, and then you can go into their then you can look up all of the properties. So what I did is I looked up this lady's name in Miami Gardens, and it was a Haitian name. So I told Paul that it was a Haitian woman, she has equity in her property, she's losing her property tomorrow, it's going in auction. Why don't we make her a deal where we can help her? So we agreed to give her $10,000 to deed the property over to us, and we would give her 30 days to live there, because if the property was sold the next day, she would be kicked out of the property, and she would get nothing. So we went over there, and she spoke Creole, and she actually had the Psalms up in every single window. She thought everybody was the devil, and she was a very religious woman, but she was not really that in touch with reality, and I think that's why she was in the position that she was in. So Paul spoke to her in Creole, and she agreed to deed the property over to us and to take the money, and then she was allowed to live there for a certain amount of time. What we did is we took the deed, we were the owners of the property, and we went and we paid off the mortgage of $70,000. We got the final payoff from the county, and we paid it off before it went to auction. And then we became the owners of the property because we had the deed that we recorded, and we also paid off the mortgage on the property. And now we have a property that we have about $70,000 plus the $10,000 for the woman, which is the $80,000. That's worth $130,000. Well, the next thing we did is we put some money to fix it up, and we put it on the market. I think we fixed it up for about $10,000, maybe more or less. And we ended up selling the property for $150,
$280, $225,
$225. Oh, $245 after we fixed it up. So that was probably one of the best deals that we did.
So not even an auction deal.
No.
You're talking about a pre-foreclosure.
That was a
Knocking on doors.
This is the other 2,000 or 2,500 properties that are going through that I just spoke about.
Now that sounds very peachy and it sounds great, but I can tell you that it was at the very least 100 hours of research, about 8 hours a day, 10, 12 days of research before I came across that property. And it's not easy to find those. Most of those properties are found by other people in addition to the people who are researching it. and they're approached by other people also, and says, hey, we'll